Thank you, Dr. Mariam El-Sabri, for this session. The 7th session will start now, and Mrs. Chavia Ali will share with us the hallmarks of her success story. Please, Mrs. Chavia. Thank you. First of all, thank you. The afternoon speakers generally have the least advantage in terms of listeners, but they get the most active and powerful audience. I'm pleased to be with you this afternoon in this session. Well, I don't see myself as a success story or a leadership story, but rather as a social driver, in the sense that my story started a long time ago, and before that I would like to introduce myself to you. My name is Chavia Ali, and excuse me for the length of my job title, the Regional Coordinator of People with Disabilities in the UN Arab Regional Program Office, and I have been working in this position for 3 years. But before these 3 years, there is a story that brought me to this position. Back in 2000, I joined the university at Aleppo Law School. And I was surprised from the very first in the university to find that there were unprepared staircases and non-functioning elevators. So I expected that all I had to do was to submit a request in this regard, and as a result, engineering changes would be made to facilitate my access to the lecture hall. But the case went for months, and I ended up suffering from the greatest humiliation of my life, as the first person in charge from which I expected a solution told me, "What do you want?" by constantly asking for changes. People who can walk on their legs and have not benefited from anything, what do you expect to change? As much as of an insult his words were, they were also the reason I thought to myself, there is certainly an issue, but is the issue is with me or with him? Of course it's not with me. He has to change, not me, and I'm not supposed to stay home. This is how the group of demands started to regulate the rights of disabled people in Syria, and then it shifted to the whole Arab region, and this was progressing really well. So we were able to make many changes, which are regarded until now the modest changes, given the urgent need for change and development in the Arab region. In the course of this week, there will be the Arab Day of Persons with Disabilities, which the United Nations celebrate every year, and international institutions usually try to show their best of the day through achievements, creativity, grants and scholarships to communicate the voices of people with disabilities. And I work in one of these organizations that at this time of the year put out reports and show the best of what they're doing. But at the same time, there is always a sense of awareness within ourselves that no matter how far we can come, there is always something better coming the next year, better strategies, and so on and so forth. I would like to share some examples from the year 2021 and 22. For example, the subject of innovation and disability, boot camps and programs in Morocco and Yemen, dealing with subjects of armed conflict and protection of people with disabilities, a program in Egypt whose subject was facilitating the delivery of information to deaf people. In addition to the programs in Somalia, which is rated as the best program personally in Somalia. In Lebanon, very good programs in arts and songs, and very good steps, or many steps that today are deemed to be positive steps towards the development of the region. What we always find most important, however, is the issue of leadership and people with disabilities, decisions always made by people who do not have disabilities. There are institutions that hire a work team of innovators and creators, and they may be able to reach Mars, but they don't know the measurements of the height of the toilet seat of a person with a disability. The thought was to focus on the issue of leadership and people with disabilities, and how can we get people with disabilities into leadership positions. And that is why I'm the leadership room, because that's one of the promises we make to ourselves and the United Nations and the whole work team about how we can over time provide leaders among people with disabilities who can take decisions and manage their programs, and who are present in a work team and so on and so forth. But making decisions in the absence of voices of people with disabilities, that's seen as one of the biggest and the most important challenges that the most institutions face today. Further, we see the issue of inclusive workplaces, and there have been many dialogues and discussions regarding the extent to which institutions can provide jobs and grants with dignity for people with disabilities, along with many issues that have been worked on recent times. Actually, I was somewhat confused today because most of the interventions were about individual successes, as I have prepared examples that are not about me personally, but if we were to talk a little bit about me personally, the participation of people with disabilities is seen as a social responsibility to provide them with opportunities, and people with disabilities also have a great responsibility when they access the field of work regarding the inclusion of others. There are two types of people with disabilities accessing the field of work. The first one is afraid of completion and closes the door of opportunities to the other one behind him, because they believe that the presence of two people in the same job position will inevitably lead to the exemption of one of them. Luckily, the work team I belong to, which is part of the United Nations Development Programme, strongly believe in opening the door for others to participate with us in working on the issue. Nowadays, we have people with from disabilities from Egypt, from the Lebanon, Syria, in addition to employees of people with disabilities like me. And I personally am a living example of this, and we also have integrated experts to work with us. Here is an overview of my work, and I won't take long, but I'd love to hear the questions and ideas and advice that you'd like to share with me so I can learn with you as well. And thank you very much indeed. Okay. Thank you very much indeed, Chavia Ali, for this lovely session. Honorable audience, the 8th session is now taking place, in which Ryan Mahfoud talks about his success story. Please, Mr. Ryan.